What are we doing at quarterback? Aidan O'Connell, currently the starter. New GM Tom Telesco comes in. New head coach is Antonio Pierce.
You're like text buddies with Tom. What does he think you should do? Just ask him.
You can't give away my
contacts.
Yeah, because now if I say an NFL GM said, people might think it's Tom.
No, you just need more than one, and you're good.
Well, I'm going to show Tom the model this week, and if he likes the model, maybe I'm going to go work for the Raiders and draft better.
In Vegas. You're a real Vegas person.
Oh, yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
It was great. I love paying airport prices and, real world, everywhere you go. So the Raiders, it's an interesting spot because they overachieved last year, I thought, defensively, right? And from an on-paper standpoint, boy, do they need playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. They got some impressive play from guys like Malcolm Kuntz and, Max Crosby, of course, is dominant, and Robert Spillane did a great job last year. So they overachieved. They did a really nice job. They maybe stole Jack Jones if he could continue to stay out of trouble. Looked like a really big-time playmaker for them down the stretch. So maybe the defense isn't as bad as I thought it would be, but I would not, I would continue to add to that side of the ball. And that's after we solve the quarterback situation.
There's definitely a world where that group is actually pretty decent, as opposed to this time a year ago. You're looking at it, you're like, this is just no way. This is terrible.
Yeah.
Like Jack Jones is a legitimate talented playmaker if they can keep him on the straight and narrow. Nate Hobbs is a really good player. They put him back in the slot where he belongs. Jacorian Bennett didn't grade particularly well, but he's got a lot of ability as a young man-to-man type of corner. As you said, Malcolm Kuntz, Max Crosby, Trevon Merrick, like Robert Spillane of all people was playing really well, and they love him.
He showed flashes in Pittsburgh.
But that is like, you're starting to put together a core that could actually work long term. Now, you still need to build on it. There's basically nobody on the interior, but that they could be something.
Yeah. So again, I would continue to add to that side of the ball. Let's start with the QB discussion, though. We talk a lot about taking chances on quarterbacks and take as many shots. Like Aidan O'Connell's one of those guys, right? Was he fourth round?
Yeah.
Fourth round pick. You took a shot on him. There's something to work with there.
He flashed.
He
But
did.
you can't go into the season with him as the starter.
No, I mean, so
not unless you're like deliberately tanking,
right?
Which you're not allowed to officially do.
This is what was really interesting about last season, where two teams did that, right? Washington with Sam Howell, and Atlanta with Desmond Ridder. They took a third, fourth, fifth rounder, right? Third rounder in Ridder, fifth rounder in Howell.
And that's not helping Aidan O'Connell's.
No, it's not helping the case whatsoever.
Yeah, right.
But they said, okay, we're invested. We're buying into you as our starter.
We're giving you a shot
next year. We're giving you a shot.
Those players typically don't get that shot. I love seeing that as an experiment. It's just kind of unfortunate that both of them went to hell.
And so I'm like, my strategy would be, draft your Aidan O'Connells every year. Draft your Spencer Rattlers. Draft anybody you can in the third, fourth, fifth round every single year. But you're gonna do it next year too, right? You're not gonna be like, well, we drafted O'Connell last year. Got to give him a shot. Have to give him a shot. Have to see what he can do. You don't have to. You can draft someone else as well. So the Raiders pick at 13. They are right behind the potentially QB desperate Vikings and the QB desperate, as we already laid out, Denver Broncos. So they're in an even worse position.
And the Falcons and the Giants.
Yeah. I'm just talking about specifically in that range.
In addition to the three teams picking 1, 2, 3 that all need quarterbacks.
There's 6 or 7 teams ahead of them who could be drafting a quarterback.
Yes. Yes. That puts them in a very bad position to grab a quarterback.
So another team where do you say, like, let's show patience? We're in a division with the Chiefs. We're in a division where the Chargers are picking 5th, but boy, do they have a much better foundation than these other teams do because they have Justin Herbert. So if you're Denver and you're Vegas, when you're talking to, Mark Davis or whoever, your owners, you're like, hey, the goal is to compete in 25 and 26. We're building a team to compete in a couple years. If the Raiders were half in, half out a couple years ago, right? We're going to kind of hedge on Derek Carr. We know we need to rebuild this whole thing, but we're going to trade for Devontae Adams too and try to win now. They were half in, half out, and they're still half in, half out because of that. Are they another team that actually needs a complete reset here?
Their problem, I think, is slightly different to Denver's, only in terms of they're even further away from the quarterback option. So if you're strategizing for the Raiders, I think you have a fair argument to just sort of lay out the landscape to ownership and say, where the hell am I getting a quarterback from? Like, even if we want one, what are we doing here? Either you go crazy aggressive and you try and trade up to 3, the trade that we talked about for Denver that we didn't love, or you say there's simply no way we're getting a high-quality starting quarterback this offseason, and that's a reality that you need to accept and embrace. So those are your two options. Like, do you trade all the way up to 3, if not higher, or do you accept, like, we can't actually put a starting quarterback on the field. It's O'Connell's this year, and next year we'll try and find a guy.
Well, the other difference is the Raiders have a second-round pick that Denver doesn't have. So the second-round pick, I mean, I would take a Michael Penix in round 2. Do I want him in the top 15? I don't know.
And start him, like, right away?
Penix and O'Connell, go ahead and compete. Like again, the whole point of drafting an Aiden O'Connell in the 4th round isn't to just give him 6 or 7 starts in year 1. It's to actually see if he could develop during the course of his 4-year contract, right? And it's year 2 of Aiden O'Connell. Let O'Connell and Penix compete for the starting spot. You get Penix at 40, pick 44. You pick the best player available at 13. Pick Michael Penix at 44 if he's there. I don't know where his stock's going to land, the injury stuff, but say Michael Penix, whoever it is. I mean, I think J.J. McCarthy should be going in round 2, not in the top 15 too, but I don't know what the scarcity is.
Right.
But I would take insert round 2 quarterback. Bo Nix should probably be going in the 2nd round as well. Again, scarcity issue. But I would take your favorite round 2 quarterback and say, here, go compete with Aiden O'Connell. And if we got to draft one next year in the 1st round, we'll do that too, if we're better positioned.
Yeah, I mean, I think this just the same as the Raiders. I think that's a better strategy, or the Broncos rather. I think that's a better strategy than trading to 3 because of what you have to give up and the fact that you're trading for QB3 most likely, or at least 2 on your board. So yeah, I mean, it's a tough sell to ownership though. Hey, the competition this year is Aiden O'Connell versus 2nd round quarterback who's QB5 maybe off the board.
I mean, the whole point of you have to be able to think long term if you're building a team.
And there's no veteran option, by the way. Like, this is the other shadow over this. Like, if assuming they're not in the Kirk Cousins market, which I guess they could be, after Cousins, you are talking Baker, who we already discussed is not really going to get you where you need to go, particularly in this division. Ryan Tannehill, and then backups like Brissett, Minshew, Winston.
Drew in the chat
Tyrod.
again is suggesting Ryan Tannehill as a bridge quarterback.
I mean, if you're bridging, you might as well just go with Aiden O'Connell.
But you bring in Tannehill and you bring in O'Connell and you hope O'Connell wins the job, probably. It's a tough sell to Tannehill, who could be a starter still.
Right.
But the point is to allow all the other draft capital to go. It's a cheap quarterback option, probably, like 1 year, $10 million or whatever. And then every other asset's going to the rest of the team.
Yeah, I just don't see the point in a quarterback like that. I feel like you're better off doing the Washington thing. I mean, they did it, I guess, with Brissett, but what's the point? If you're in the situation where you're that far away,
just roll with O'Connell.
Just roll with the guy that's not costing any money and showed flashes last year. Like, why complicate it by giving him veteran competition unless you believe there's like mentorship value in that, which for Tannehill specifically, I think is a tough sell given how he reacted when they drafted Will Levis and the guy the year before that, Malik Willis. Like, Tannehill fairly well set out, like, my job is not mentorship. My job is to play quarterback for this team. So he doesn't feel like the right type of guy if you want to bring him in to help the young guy along. I just don't see the point in that. Like, if you're in that position, just play Aiden O'Connell and see how it pans out.
All right. So quarterback's a challenge.
Could they be in the Kirk Cousins market? Because if you want a high caliber starting quarterback, he's the only option as a veteran.
I feel like the last year at this time we were having this discussion about Derek Carr when he was a free agent, and we said if the Jets signed Derek Carr as a fallback from Aaron Rodgers, that feels horrible.
Yes.
Because they're competing with a Dolphins team that's going all in, and of course the Bills. But we said when Derek Carr signs with the Saints, it's like, well, all right, now they're the best team in the NFC South. They weren't, but they probably should have been. It feels different. The Cousins thing kind of feels the same to me, where it's like if your answer to Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert in your division is Kirk Cousins, it doesn't feel great, especially not at the price. If your answer in the NFC South is Kirk Cousins, and you're, for the Falcons say, it feels a little bit better. Feels like we could win this division with everything else we have. So that's where I am with the Raiders. It just shows the difficulty of the whole quarterback dance.
Yeah, and it's
not
also,
that like not that like the Michael Penix mystery box, the Bo Nix mystery box is better, but it's cheaper and it could be good. And if it's not good, you play another mystery box that's still going to be much cheaper, right? As you're building your roster out.
And Cousins at this point is he's not a long-term solution, right? He's 35, 36. He's coming off an Achilles.
Yeah.
It's not the guarantee that it might have been a couple of years ago.
I think he's a better version than what Derek Carr was, but it's a similar decision of like, oh yeah, Derek Carr will do it.
And he's older. Like it's not necessarily, you can't even sort of pitch yourself as, hey, Cousins can be the guy for the next 5 to 7 years. It's like, no, Cousins has probably got 2 in him. And then you're out of there.
I will say the foundation that the Raiders have with Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers catching the ball.
Yeah.
Michael Mayer in year 2 here. It is a nice foundation that I do think if Cousins was there, you've got a chance to put up an offense, to create some offense here. Right. Just like a couple of years ago, Derek Carr should have been in position to, put up numbers, but whatever reason, the Josh McDaniels offense was not good whatsoever for what the Raiders needed to do.
So if we're rolling with Aiden O'Connell, a quarterback, drafted a guy in round 2, effectively punting on the position for a year, the Raiders have quite a lot of cap space to spend. One of the biggest moves I think they could make is if and when it reaches the new league year, they should outbid the Chiefs for Chris Jones.
That would be something. That's the defensive playmaker I think they need. Now you got Chris Jones. So you got Chris Jones and Max Crosby. It's a lot of money locked up in 2 guys, but I would like that.
It is, but they are, 2 of the top guys in the NFL at their position. I mean, those are 2 of the best impact playmakers. It fills the biggest area of need on that Raiders defense, and you steal the best defensive player away from the best team in your division.
Does that keep you in that halfway, hey, we're trying to compete right now, but we're still really trying to figure out this quarterback situation? We're not there yet?
Yeah, I mean,
because I feel like if you go a little bit younger, I mean, there's no one else like Chris Jones on the market, but if you go younger with your free agent signings, get your 26, 27-year-olds so that they're peaking 2-3 years from now.
I mean, it's not a long-term solution, but we both said previously, like, you feel good about the next 3 years of Chris Jones, right? So I think there's space for like a spectrum of ages and experiences, and cap lengths or contract lengths rather on the roster. Yeah, like theoretically, if you draft a new quarterback next year and he's your guy, and then it's going to take a year for him, like you're 2-3 years down the road before the Raiders are like legit, and then maybe you're getting to the end of the Chris Jones thing. But I don't think that means it's a bad move just because he's not necessarily going to be there in 4 years' time. Like, they need impact on that defensive line now, unless you're legitimately trying to blow it up and start over. And
I don't think they're going to try to blow it up. I mean, it's funny, some of the things Antonio Pierce is already saying is scaring me. Like, I'm, against my nature, hate doing this, but like just reading quotes, not hearing the context, I'm against this.
I mean, Antonio Pierce, without hearing or seeing what you're about to say, Antonio Pierce strikes me as the kind of guy who, regardless of situation, will be telling you how they're going to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's already hinted at like, oh, we already figured out the Chiefs type of, like, we already showed we could, whatever. It feels like that's going to be, like the Chiefs are going to drop 50 next year against the Raiders just because he said it type of thing.
I think that's
poking
just his like attitude or outwardly face. Like when he was telling you about how he's going to build the defense around Robert Spillane, and like, it's just the type of person he is. Like there's no situation that's too negative for us to paint a positive spin on it.
All right. Are we so that's another interesting move. You're saying Chris Jones.
I'd go after Chris Jones. I think they have the money to make that happen. It fills a perfect need. It damages the best team in your division and the best team in the conference and the best team in the NFL, it's win-win.
To me, it feels like it might be a mismatch of the team building strategy where we're going to be a little patient at quarterback,
but
maybe impatient on
defense.
But
in 3 years' time, let's say, for example, in 3 years' time, you've now got a young quarterback on a rookie contract who's a year into his career and clearly looked good, right? Now is the time to deploy the resources around him. That's right at the time Chris Jones is now reaching the end of this contract and the money's getting freed up anyway. You're just going in a different direction with it. It's not like it hurts that strategy.
Other places that they need to attack, 3 out of 5 offensive line starters hitting free agency. Again, last year at this time didn't look great on paper, but they were solid. Jermaine Illuminor, who you've liked the last couple of years, hits free agency, played right tackle last year. Greg Van Roten had a career year. Andre James at center. So some holes to plug in there. They've got Colton Miller and Dylan Parham back at left tackle and left guard, but that's it.
I mean, I would try and bring back 1 or 2 of those guys. Illuminor, Van Roten, either one or both could come back. If not, they're in the shopping market for that those veteran offensive linemen, of which I think there are quite a few. So it's work that needs to be done, but I don't think it's insurmountable.
Then there's the Josh Jacobs situation at running back. I know what we would do. Antonio Pierce as head coach, with Tom Telesco coming in. Remember, Telesco, I don't want to say played hardball with Austin Eckler, but he didn't necessarily give in to Eckler. They signed Eckler to, I think, a very analytically sound, reasonable running back contract, which also is probably the same contract that really pisses off running backs, right?
Yeah.
So it was one of those, like, on paper, this is a really sound move, but it's also one after a year where the dude gets disgruntled for being underpaid. So how do you balance that now with Josh Jacobs?
Yeah, this feels like one where what you should do and what they're going to do are completely different answers. Like, I think they're going to pay him whatever, it takes to keep him around. I feel like you just let a guy like that walk.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a 2-year deal and it's reasonable.
I mean, I don't think he's signing for an Austin Eckler deal.
No, not at like 6-7 million, whatever it was, 6 million.
But even
like 2 years, 12 million or something like that.
But even like a current version of the Austin Eckler deal, I don't think he's signing for. I think he's certainly not signing before testing free agency at that.
Yeah, I mean, I know I wouldn't pay him, but I think if Pierce, if they do really want to run the ball and. There's an argument. Josh Jacobs has been a top 3 most valuable running back, 3 to 5 most valuable running back. Last year wasn't great, but 2 years ago he was number 1 in PFF WAR, led the league in rushing, and they did win some games legitimately because of him. But the second contract stuff, obviously, not a great history there for running backs. So, and as we mentioned, every year there's a nice rounds 2 to 4 running back group, and this year's no different. Mm-hmm. So I would get younger there. Pick 13. Is there anybody in particular? Remember, we talked about the defensive players that could be falling. I think there's the cornerback world.
Yeah.
They should be very much in the mix there.
Cornerback, I think you might be in a position where you might be picking the top corner off the board at that point, or certainly like cornerback 2, given what we just talked about, which is, okay, Jack Jones has been really good. On the other hand, he's in Vegas and he has a history of problems. So at the minimum, you should probably have a contingency plan there for Jack Jones. Nate Hobbs is really good. He's your slot guy. Jacorian Bennett, I think, flashed potential, but is a second year, mid to low round corner prospect that you're probably relying on starting this year. I think they should absolutely try and grab another starter in the draft in the first round if he's there. So if you get to take your pick of your favorite corner, I think that's perfect.